So hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh and I am chatting with writer-director Niall Owens. So his fantastic film Gateway is going to be opening the IndieCork Festival and he will have a screening on the 19th of September. First up, without giving too much away, tell us a little bit about what Gateway is about.
Gateway is a psychological horror. The easiest way to describe it is love-hate meets The Shining. So it has that criminal element to the story, and then it also has a psychological horror element, which is the element I'm most interested in. I'm not a big fan of gangster movies or gangster stories, that kind of thing, unless they're period, you know. So that's what it's the gist of it, really. Love-hate meets The Shining.
So there's a bunch of different things. I'll go into the writing of it first, but I definitely want to talk about the budget of it. So don't let me forget that later. But just when did this start off as an idea? Like, when did you go, I'd like to write this? Did you write it with the intention of shooting it? Or did you just have the idea and then decide to shoot it yourself?
Well, what it was, where Gateway came from was, it actually came from another, I had written another project that I was hoping to shoot, and I had the location secured for it. And I had a really great actor, a Scottish actor. He's done a load of work. I won't say his name only because, but he's a great actor. He'd be well known. And so I worked with him and I gave him the script for this feature I'd written, and he was really interested in it. But unfortunately, I got the location and we started getting bits in place, but it didn't work out ultimately with him, who I'd still love to work with. So at this point, I still had the location and I had some money, and I was like, I need to do something because I have this location that I can film in, where a lot of the film takes place.
And that's the house it's set in, isn't it?
It's the house where they go to. So it was a case of, okay, I need a story, and the writing process on Gateway was the least, structured I've ever done. And it's weird because it works, thankfully it works in the narrative sense in terms of the cut. Like, when I did an assembly cut, the roughest assembly cut, I could see, the story's there. So I got all the beats. And then it was just a case of finessing. But the writing was messy, 60 pages, add another 5, add another 10. It wasn't the way I'd usually written stuff. But it kind of worked because it was like a layering process. So I started out with let's say, if you want to call it the horror aspect of the story. I kind of started with that. And then I needed a mechanism for it, of how do you get these characters into this situation where it feels tangible and it feels honest. And I really didn't want to do the house in the middle of nowhere, or a story where it's set in the middle of nowhere and remove people from the safety of, if you want to call it, urban life. So I had a friend who's in the police. He's a Garda basically, and he told me about a thing which I won't go into only because it might give away a bit of the story. But a very common thing that happens now around Cork, in terms of drugs, and that kind of fed into tying in with their motivations in terms of the characters, what they're doing, and then ultimately what happens to them, and they're all it's woven together where it feels honest. And it feels like it's not just, let's go here and then this happens and why are we here, and
it's a nice sort of metaphor to someone who, and this isn't a spoiler because he's suffering from this haunting sort of sleep paralysis moment in the very, very opening scene. So I'm not giving too much away. But, it shows that kind of haunting of a person, and it draws those parallels of that kind of thriller element. With the kind of pressures on people in that world, and that kind of that kind of societal peer pressure that they're under, and it does draw those parallels and add that layer of tension to it, which makes it a really interesting watch and very tense as well.
There's a great dynamic between the lads, and one of the things that I really liked about the main character Mike, played by Timmy Creed, is that he's involved in this criminal enterprise, but he's still a human being. They're all still people, and they don't have to be they're not bad all the time. they do a thing that's illegal. So Mike's dealing with trauma. The specifics of the trauma will be, are revealed in the story. But yeah, he's dealing with something that's happened, be it, him being involved or not being involved. And I really wanted to explore that. Like that for me is the story. That's what I was most interested in.
The interesting dynamic of toxic male group friendships, I think, and that's really evident of, like you have this sort of malevolent alpha sort of haranguing the group, and then a bunch of different kind of intergroup politics. Although it's very kind of deftly written, but it is there, like it's just touched upon the subtleties there, like, and I think that's nice, and that felt when you're watching it, even though the world is these man things are happening in it, it adds that layer of kind of convinces you as a watcher and gets you emotionally involved, which I enjoyed watching, because like I think sometimes people are sort of what's the word, they're sort of cartoonized, cartoonish or whatever, but I'm like, even the dynamics there, you understand everyone's motivations, even though there's a lot of characters, and even though they're involved in another task, which I think is good writing. It's great to watch.
It was very important to me that it was as real as it could be. I didn't want to glorify, nor did I want too much swearing. Like when swearing happens, it's an important thing to me. Like swearing should be a tool utilized to convey a point, not just a constant barrage of curse words. And like even things like that, and even from a performance standpoint, like Gateway was not really a collaboration. Gateway was a dictatorship. And the reason being is that I needed, like, being my first feature, and as a director, all you have is your confidence in yourself. No matter who all you got is that confidence. And the thing is, I needed to know that I was making the right decisions, and that, be it if they were the wrong, like if it was all done at the end and it was terrible, at least I'd know that I made those decisions and they were bad decisions, and you can learn from it and grow as a storyteller. So I didn't want that ambiguity of kind of going, oh, was that my idea or someone else's? And not from a egotistical standpoint, more so I could trust myself more, basically. And so from a performance standpoint, to get that kind of real world feel, I just told them all, Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood was the note. Go watch Clint Eastwood. He does nothing except when he's talking, and even then, doesn't physically move that much, doesn't move his face that much, no big movements. Everything just super flat. And they did, and it lends itself to the dialogue and interactions, because when it's tense, it's more palpable, because they're not shouting all the time and being tough and aggressive. It's more, honest. Or not honest is the wrong word, more real.
So when you put this together, again, quite quickly, that's very impressive. Did you always have a clear idea of what was going to happen, even as you were writing towards it, or did you find your way as you were going?
No, I would have, like, the script would have been done, I think about two weeks out from shooting. It was a very compacted process. Wow. Yeah, because like once the other project had kind of gone by the wayside, I had a window where I had people interested and available, and it was like, right, I need to make this happen. So I kind of just launched into the script, and what I would do is I'd meet up with like two friends of mine who were in the film, and basically there's
just out of curiosity, I just want to get a picture as you're describing this. Mm-hmm. How long was the shoot?
The shoot was the initial block was 12 days, and then we did 3 blocks of 2 days, I think, in pickups, for just stuff we couldn't get at the time because of time constraints. So 12 days straight was the initial shooting block. And I think that was more appealing for trying to get folks to do something on a no budget, is to say, listen, we'll just go straight through, get it done, and you can get back to, making money, working. But yeah, so the Gateway process, it was very compacted, and the writing process, like, it was done 2 weeks out, and then it was a case of the story really didn't change from then to now, which is one of the things I'm most proud of, is that, like, if you watch the film and then read the script, the exact same thing. There's been no tweaks to fix the narrative. There have been things added, purely because, like, I showed it to a friend of mine who's a producer, and she said, listen, we need to know a little earlier what they're doing. And I was like, that's a very good point. So I shot a scene that happened at the start that kind of establishes very early on what this group is up to. And it's purely kind of like, so the audience can move on to the next part of the story and not be wondering. But it's the exact same script I wrote, which is what I'm super happy about. I didn't have to go, let's change this to make this work, because it's not quite working, you know. And that's a challenge every filmmaker faces, you know. It's not, you know, you're always existing in that space of not knowing as you're shooting if it's going to work and if it conveys what you want it to, you know.
Very interesting. So your actors, tell me about the casting process then. So how many actors, like, cause I know, Jesus, lines are hard to learn. Were they like, okay, yeah, we'll go with the flow? Or are they like, oh my God, because it's script, man, I need to learn my lines?
Well, the casting process was great because I wrote a lot of it with actors in mind. So I would have already known who was playing, who I wanted. And then it was just a case of getting them to do it, you know, asking them to do it. The group, like the main core group in the story, they would have been very much set from when I wrote it. I would have known who was playing who. The two actors that were recommended to me were Lawrence Ubang Williams and Fiona Hardy, and they came in from England. And Timmy actually had studied with them in Oxford, if I'm not mistaken, and he recommended both of them. And I trusted Timmy, so I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And I talked to them both, and they're superb performers, you know, and they're really excellent actors. So most parts I'd written with someone in mind, and then other parts, it was a little more of a kind of, not so much a search, but a very quick discovery. Like Ryan I had Ryan in mind, and then I talked to the makeup artist Stephanie Kavanagh, and I was kind of saying, I'm trying to figure who I'll cast for this. And she was like, oh, I just did a music video with Ryan. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I was just thinking of Ryan because I'd worked with him before, and he's really intense and he's just a brilliant actor. So I was like, okay, I'll ask Ryan. And yeah, he did it. And I was delighted because he's such a performer, such a brilliant actor. So yeah, to be honest with you, the whole process from start to finish, and when I say finish, I mean production and all that. Like, we're still technically finishing it, but from the shooting point of view, very, very easy. It's actually like intense and a lot to do, but I never felt stressed or pressured. I cried the first day of filming. I went home and cried because it didn't go well, and I was very close to cancelling the whole thing because I was like, I can't do this and I'm not capable. So I rang my mom, talked to my mom, and she calmed me down, told me, get some sleep, get up tomorrow and see how you feel. And did that, got up the next day and back on the horse. And the rest of it was, thankfully, went super great. No problems. Really, I just loved it, you know, I just loved it. Intense, but it was what I wanted to do, you know.
Oh, that's fabulous. And I've been there, like, I know that feeling where you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because again, like, it's you have so many resources that have to go at that time. Like, that just, like, it has to go out at that time. And if things hold up the works, like, you're losing stuff and you don't know. Like, at that stage, if everything went like that, like, we wouldn't have a film. So no. Yeah, I can totally empathize with that. And
but it's like it's a feeling I embrace. Like, it should always be a struggle. I believe as a filmmaker, it should always be a struggle, and the struggle is where you learn about yourself. Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of like what I take most out of Gateway. For me personally, is that, like, I produced it, I wrote it, and I directed it. So, like, I go in, I get up in the morning, make sure breakfast is inside for everybody, go in, open the location, get everybody in, then meet whoever was coming, then make sure lunch was getting picked up, then go back in, direct, then finish the day on set, go in, go back home and do the call sheets, call all the actors who come in the next day, and make sure all they were arriving okay. And the thing is, like, it's hard, but like, that's where you learn that you can do these things, you know, that I can balance all these things, and they benefit you as a filmmaker. Because the more you know about yourself and your own capabilities, the better you are. So it's like, don't give me it easy. Like, I don't want it to be easy, because if it's easy, I'm not going to learn anything, you know. So I embrace it. I love that. I love the challenge, and I love the struggle.
I'm sure
Yeah,
you're no stranger to sets, and I'm sure you've seen it all go wrong in various iterations. And I think that you've been on some pretty big sets as an AD, and your job is wrangling everyone along, keeping everyone up. So I'd say it's a set of skills, all right.
It like, don't get me wrong, that helps massively. And I learned a lot watching people work in terms of like just communicating and framing shots and that kind of thing. But there are always those gray areas where you've no experience, and you just have to kind of you go for it. Now, doing a lot of shorts, I mean, I produced all my own shorts as well, and that was a good learning curve. And the feature, yourself, a feature is just a bigger version of a short, and there's just more things to go wrong. So you just kind of, you prepare yourself that something might go sideways, but you're also prepared just to deal with it.
When was the shoot?
The shoot would have been, we initially shot May 2018.
Okay, grand. So you didn't have COVID
no.
on your back.
No, we had finished off photography by the time COVID came around.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, how to put it? Money basically is why the film would have been done sooner if I had money to pay people to post, sound design.
But it's definitely worked out for the best, because you're getting to open the festival and see it in an actual cinema. Which people haven't been able to do for like nearly 2 years.
No, I think that, and also I'll be honest with you, the time has benefited the film in terms of finessing it, because it's not like I showed it to a lot of people to get feedback. So I do a pass, show it to somebody, they come back with some notes. I think about those notes, I show it to someone else, see if their notes matched up. So there was a lot of backwards and forwards, because you can get, it's a tunnel vision as a filmmaker. You have your idea and you see it through that, and you miss something. You can always miss something.
Especially, I think, when you have so many hats on, because I think it's really distracting. Because I think if you're a writer and the director, it's difficult. It's slightly more difficult to be objective about the text. Like, some people can just do that switch, but I mean, it is hard, because you were attached to this certain idea, and you have to see a change. Mm-hmm. And then when you're a producer, you're also problem solving all the time, which is a completely different even set of brain function skills. So I can imagine that. And then, when you're looking at things from all those angles at the same time. So I can only imagine.
I think when you look at it through the prism of what it is, at the end of the day, it's entertainment. Now there's artistic merit to it. There's all these things within that too. But at the end of the day, it's entertainment. It's to entertain the audience. And when you look at it through that, it's very easy then to make, for example, like a writing decision. No, I'm not precious about any of the dialogue. Cut. If it doesn't need to be there, take it out. If I don't like it, it's gone. If someone else doesn't like it, and if I don't need it, gone. Once you can kind of divorce yourself from that preciousness, it's much easier. I think the key really is the whole. And when I say the whole, it's the whole thing having a flow and a continuity and a tone. And that's the key, really, is that if you have that, if you manage that overall flow and tone and vibe, then you have something that's kind of self-contained. Whereas if you don't have that, you don't know what it is, you don't know what the tone of it is, and then you're trying to keep dialogue because you think it helps define what it is. And it's like, no, this is what it is. Everything else in there can be taken out as long as we get to the end, and then, not precious about anything. Cut it all. If you don't need it, cut it out.
Terrible dictatorship.
That
is being collaborative.
It's just gone. I like I suppose what I should have prefaced what I was saying in terms of collaboration. Like, when it came to cast and performance and improvising and that kind of stuff, there was no room for it until I'd seen what I'd written. Because the thing is, like, if I turn up in the morning as a director and I've written a scene and the actors come in and they say, okay, we got some ideas for changes, and oh yeah, great, let's change it, and you go in and you shoot the changes, but you've no way of knowing if what you wrote worked. So that means you start second guessing your next scene, because it's like, well, is that going to work? I mean, I changed the previous one, so I don't know if that would have worked. So
and did you shoot for the most part chronologically?
Yeah. as much as possible, we shot chronologically. My process was, we go in, I need to hear it as it's written, because if it's bad, well, then it makes me think about my next scene and I'll need to fix that, or I might need to have a look at it. Whereas if we go in and it works, it's like, well, no, that's good. We can try a version afterwards if we really want to, but I need to hear it to know if my decisions are right or wrong, basically. Because you kind of, that will inform everything else as you go. Now, sometimes when someone come in with a great note, and you've got to, I'm not saying don't listen to them, but you need to hear what you've written first, so that way you know if you're on the right track or not. Because all you've got, again, is that confidence. All you've got is that belief in yourself. And if you don't quite trust yourself, well, then you start making bad decisions. And I've done that in the past. I've not trusted my gut, and I've made decisions, and they were wrong. And I've kind of not paid for them, but I've had actors say to me, "Oh, I wish you shot the script I originally wrote and not made those changes." And you're like, you know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't have, but I didn't trust my gut. And I kind of, that was that lesson learned. Sorry for waffling.
No. It's all golden. Very, very interesting stuff. And what has been the leap from, you were saying like a feature is a very, very long short, but what has been kind of the noticeable difference in between shooting a feature and a short? Like, is it more difficult to keep track of story and be your own script editor? Is it, what would be your kind of main thing that you'd be like, actually that's the thing that I'd learned the most of in this process?
That's a good question. Well, you see, I would almost say making a compelling short is harder than making a feature, I would think, because you got less time. You've got to get in more information, and you've got to do it in a way that feels honest and feels realistic. So there's a real, like, I would say I'm a decent short filmmaker, not a great short filmmaker. I know a lot of really great short filmmakers, and they have that ability. So with the feature, I think the biggest learning curve in the feature really was, that's a good question. I'd have to think about it. Like, I think the one thing I took from the feature overall up until this point, which again kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier, was believing again in myself. Believing in my decisions. Even from the sound design to the grade, it's all geared towards how I saw it day one. So there's no deviation from when I first told my DP or one of the actors the story and how I saw it in my head. There's no deviation from that. That's what it will be when it's done. And some folks, like my sound designer Aaron, he's really talented guy, and he's doing some brilliant work in it. But I know at times he's sat back and he's kind of gone, "What? You want to do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I want to do." And I could be wrong, and I've said that to Aaron, like, I could make this decision and it shows in the cinema and it doesn't work, but that's on me, and I'll hold my hand up and say, "Yeah, I made a call and it was a bad one," But I learned from that. But up until this point, everyone who's kind of watched the steps in terms of the passes, my executive producers, my writer, or not my writer, my DP, I should say, and some of the cast, they're all super delighted because it's what was planned. It's how it's always been described, and it has the vibe that we always set out for it to have. Like going all the way back to camera decisions.
That I must say as well, like, I know I didn't see the final version, but the sound was really excellent. Like, it really bulked the tension up in those pivotal moments. It really, like, I did go, God, like, that's really kind of, because it's difficult, because again, like, you don't get to go, "Oh, I'm going to have a big train going past," really use that to jump, because you're in one location. Like, you are kind of dealing with these with that kind of, but yet trying to express the kind of the internal struggle sometimes of the protagonist. So it does do a really, really good job.
It'll be different when you do watch it. When you see the finished thing, it'll actually sound different to what you've seen. I was up in Dublin yesterday with Darren, and I think we're up as far as the end of reel 3, which is, I think, about 48 minutes in. And we've made, when I say fairly substantial changes, more kind of refining, so that we've taken out some sounds and we've added in some sounds and we then refined it. So it'll definitely sound different. Not massively, but again, more within the tone, the vibe of the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? Like there was a continuity of performance I wanted, a continuity of camera I wanted, a continuity of sound, and a continuity of score. So they always had to be how I saw them, and we're slowly moving now to that point where they're all lining up, and it's, again, it comes back to that thing of like, it'll work or it won't, you know. It's not it's definitely going to be like a thing where it's its own thing, in the sense of like the decisions being made will either, you know, they'll either help it be a better film, or, you know, it won't be a better film, but at least it'll still be its own thing, you know, I think.
Fabulous. So
I don't know, it's like a mystery. You don't know.
I know. That's it. So it's, people will get to see it at IndieCork. So you're very, very involved with IndieCork. So is it nice to have that be a home for it?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, the first thing I ever made was a documentary with Porrick English, who was one of my executive producers and camera operator, and that was the first thing I ever made. And it was screened at Cork Film Festival, and it was Mick Hannigan that picked it. So everything I've made subsequent to that has always shown either at Cork Film Festival or then IndieCork. And, you know, the cast and crew are like, there's a lot of them that are from Cork. And it was made here, so it's kind of, it only seems right, you know. Like one can hold it back and aim for a different festival on an international stage, you know, but it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be right, you know. It's just like, I want to see it with everybody who worked in it, because we weren't able to do a cast and crew. So yeah, I can't wait for it to screen in New Cork. My journey's been with them. A lot of the cast and crew in the movie, my journey's been with them. You know, I've worked with them several times on many different things, and that's what makes it special. Like, Porrick shot the first thing I did, which was the documentary. And then he shot my first short, Torn. You know, Jer was a stills photographer on it. And Kevin, who plays Joe, is in everything I've made. Timmy is in most of what I've made. Joe Lyons, I mean, everybody on it I've worked with, and I wanted to, it's about sharing the experience. You know what I mean? That's really, like, outside of the story of the movie itself, what matters to me most in terms of doing this is who you share it with. And I want to be making movies with people that I want to be around, and that, you know, they're my friends and we've gone on a journey together and they've grown as I've grown. Like Jer started out, the first thing Jer shot for me was a short film I did called Ink, and I think it was the first thing he shot. And now he's done a feature with me and it looks great and he's super proud, and he should be. And it's like, we got to do that journey together, and hopefully we'll go on and do the next thing together. And, you know, we don't have to be super best friends. It's just that we had that journey, you know. And I think that's kind of what I look forward to most, is being able to hopefully continue working with friends and seeing them grow as I grow.
And what's next on the slate? Do you have a bunch of things in development now that you're coming to the end with this, you're ready to take out, or are you going to focus on selling this? And then...
I think I definitely need to focus on trying to sell this. You know, like, we'll see what happens with the next festival in terms of where it goes to next. Like, you know, it's up in the air in terms of will it get in or not, because I've made that mistake in the past where you make an assumption that, oh yeah, we'll definitely get in, and then you don't, and you're kind of like, what the hell? And I've realized that your festival
to keep submitting as well, like, and
yeah,
and that's it. There's a strategy to these things.
Well, that's definitely something I've learned after my short film Animal. Like, I spent $1,000 on submissions for Animal, and it got into 3 festivals.
Jeez.
If the nominated short, and it got into 3 festivals. But that's okay. That's the way it works, and that's what took me a while to get around to that point, you know, because I was angry for a good while after that. But then you kind of realize, well, hang on a second, what have I got to be angry for? You know, no one asked me to make a short film. Like, put it this way.
That's so true.
Yeah, if you see the finished version of Gateway and you don't like it, you're entitled to that. You know what I mean? It's like, if people come out of the cinema at IndieCork and they don't like the film, they're entitled to it. No one asked me to make it. I chose to do this. I chose to make a movie. And for all its challenges and for all the things that were hard, I chose to do it. So it's not, I know everyone's entitled to what they have to say about it. And the toughness of the journey at the end of the day lies with me. You know what I mean? It's not on anybody else. And kind of like, I'm, how to put it, I'm happy that I made that decision, you know? So selling it, yeah. So I go back to your point. I came roundabout. We must come back to budget.
That was very interesting detour.
I know, yeah.
Good points, like.
But it's true. I mean, like a lot of filmmakers talk about how hard it is. And I take what they're saying 100%. I know it's hard. But you got to remember, no one asked you to. So when you make a decision to do something, you're ultimately the driving force, and it's going to be hard. Like I remember Paddy Slattery was interviewed about Broken Law, and he talked about the lonely place of making a feature film, and I knew exactly what he was getting at. And what he did was very similar to Gateway. Like he just did it. He went away and he did it. And there is a very lonely place. Like for about a good year to year and a half after we'd finished filming, it's just me in the movie. There's nobody there next to you going, keep going, keep going. And you kind of feel like, oh, I wish people were encouraging me. But then you're like, well, no, I chose to do this. I'm the one who said, here, everybody come here. I'm going to make a movie and you're all going to be in it. And they're like, great. That sounds great now.
And do you sort of feel a little bit like you owe the people, like, is that sort of a motivator then to be like, oh, I have to keep, you know, like that kind of dark night of the soul where you're like, why did I do this?
I know, like, yeah.
All these people invested their time. I have to get this across the line.
100%. I have a responsibility to everybody who gave me their time. Their time may have been free in the sense of I didn't pay them at the time, but their time is not free. And I have the utmost respect for the cast and crew. And of course I owe them, because if it never makes anything, I still have to do everything I can to make sure it's the best film it can be. Because that's my onus of responsibility is for what they've given me. And that can't be forgotten. I've seen it happen in the past where folks will make a movie and ask people to work in it and it never sees the light of day, or it's absolutely terrible and they make bad decisions. And you're like, you've completely forgotten about the people who helped you get there. You know, the cast and crew who did it for nothing. And that's a massive motivator, you know, that, and also self-belief. Just, you know, you marry the two together. You have these folks who've given you their time and you owe it to them to do your best. And then yourself, it's like, I know I can do this, so I just got to keep going, you know. And I chose to start this journey. No one pushed me into it and said, make a movie, Niall, and then they ran off and left me there. You know, you kind of, how to put it, you just get on with it. You remember the fact that you chose to do it and then do everything you can to get it done, you know. I'm glad you actually brought up that point about the cast and crew, because it is something that one angers me a lot at times, is when people forget about folks who give their time and their skill, you know. And you kind of, making them proud at the screening that's the most important thing to me. Be honest with you, the audience enjoying it for sure, but the cast and crew saying thank you and being happy to have it on their resumes, you know. Yeah,
and that's really nice, like to picture you know, all vaccinated, having an old glass of wine after the screening, you know, like it seems to be like a very fortuitous time for it to be released, for it to get to open up, because again, like, people are just so excited to be back in the cinema.
Yeah, I think you know, it'll be hopefully a good opportunity for everyone to get together and see each other and be able to talk safely about the movie and have a laugh, and then watch it and come out hopefully feeling proud of what they've seen. And I can't wait. Like, I'm nervous, and I at times I sit there and I go, I don't want to watch this again. You know, I'm bored. I'm not bored, but I forget to see it as the audience will see it. They'll see it for the first time ever. I'm seeing it here editing, and I'm like, this is the 50,000th time I've watched it, and I'm kind of like, are people going to look at this and go, this is really boring? There's nothing happening, and that's possible. You know, it's not a gore fest. There's no jump scares. It's a movie about tension and atmosphere and creating hopefully a sense of dread, and leaving people with questions, the right questions as opposed to the wrong questions. And taking them on a journey into a kind of a weird place for a while. And I hope people enjoy it.
But I'm sure they will.
You asked about budget.
So what was the budget?
So the the initial shooting budget would have been in or around 12,000. So that would have been my money, my dad's, my uncle's, and Timmy's dad, Mick Creagh. So that would have been the initial shooting budget, 12 grand. Now, subsequent to that, with pickups and other, a cast, I was lucky enough to get John Walters, who edited Black 47, did a few weeks work in it, which really gave a great structure, and that was a huge help. And what else was I going to say? I was going to say something else. What point was it?
You were saying it was 12 grand for the initial shoot, but then there was pickups and post.
Yeah. So pickups, you're always talking a couple of grand because costs of food and then hiring gear. Editing, John was able to do a bit of work. There's a cost in that, of course. Then what else was there? Oh, crikey. Equipment, like we spent a bunch. Like basically, like the total, I would imagine, in a round when it's done will be about 30.
That's amazing, though.
In or around.
That is amazing.
Yeah, we, like I said, I cut my cloth to measure. We made decisions really early on that we kind of were big help in that. But yeah, I mean, like for 30 grand. Now you see, the thing is, what's important to remember is that, again, a lot of the folks, the core cast and core crew weren't paid. No, I'd pay obviously fuel expenses and food and everything. But like if you were paying everybody, then that goes north of 200. Do you know what I mean? 200,000. So the only reason this was able to get done is because the likes of Stephanie Kavanagh, Niall Craven, Timmy Creagh, Kevin Barry, Finbar Stanton, Lawrence Williams, Fiona Hardy, Ian Debris, Joe Lyons, they all gave their time for nothing. They all said, look, we'll do this. We want to do it, obviously. Like, Niall wanted to do a feature, Stephanie wanted to do a feature as a designer. Niall wanted to do a feature as a main sound recordist. And then obviously for the actors' point of view, they wanted to do, they wanted to play the parts. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without them, and their willingness to give me their time. And essentially, like in a lot of cases, some of them took time off work. So they were already spending their own money because they weren't working, So yeah, that was probably the only reason I could get it done, because it's got a big cast, like a cast of about 22, and then a crew of about 10 or 12, and then I had some great trainees from St. John's. I got to mention the lads, Keane Casey, Stuart McGrainer, Aaron Tanzan Bradstock, and Benjamin Walsh. I mean, those guys came in and they mucked in and they were brilliant. They just wanted to learn, and they made life easier. So great people. I was blessed. I'll be honest with you. Like I think one of the things that I remember most fondly is just being blessed with such amazing people. All of them: Rosie O'Regan, George Hanover, Maria Debris, Lucius Debris, Ian Debris. They were just all such amazing people, and they gave their time for nothing. And that's how you make a feature for 12 grand. You try and make sure you have hopefully really good story, and then a really good plan how to do it. Because I made those tonal decisions from the outset: static shots for the real world, handheld, 1 to 2 takes max. And I think some scenes were just one. Like it was that question of who's this scene about, and then just shoot them and have everyone else dressed in on the periphery, because the scene is about them, so we shouldn't be cutting to those faces anyway. And making decisions like that. The set design or the production design, again, minimalist. The performances, minimalist. The camera work, minimalist. The score, minimalist. Everything is kind of minimal, which then kind of lends itself to the bigger moments, because if I suddenly shouted, it's going to jump out all the more right now. If I suddenly screamed, because it's all been so. But if I've been shouting the whole time, it wouldn't make any difference. You'd be like, all right, you just shouted again.
That's it. But anyway, you did a fantastic job. Like, that is so impressive.
Did you enjoy it?
I really did enjoy it.
Are you sure? I never believe anybody.
No, sure, I have no reason to lie. I'd be like.
I know, yeah. It's like when someone gives you a compliment. I really enjoyed that, and in your head, you're like, no, you didn't. You hated it. You're just being nice.
No. I thought I really loved, especially the dynamics of the lads. I thought like it was beautiful. Like it was shot so well, and that's it. The tension carries it through, and. Again, like it's just something that I think it's a nice bit of escapism. It's also nice to see something set in that world in Cork, You know, you just don't see it as often.
Yeah.
Like, I'm from Cork. Like, that's
I know. So, yeah.
It's from my family or something. Like,
you've got no reason not to like it.
Yeah, so represent, Niall.
I know, yeah.
No, I really enjoyed it.
I'm delighted.
Yeah, so promise. so I'm sure you'll have like a kind of like a good audience there that will.
Yeah, I think. Look,
and I think it'll really suit the cinema actually, because the sound mix is so visceral. I think I'm
hoping that will jump out, because the thing is, there'll be no music on it, so like I never wanted conventional music. So my hope is that that we can, like, it's with Tony Langlois, who composed the score. It's an unconventional score. It's organic, and you can hear it a lot of the time. Is to have that kind of like undulating throughout at different points, and then we augment it then by adding some extra bits for the moments that are meant to jump out at you. But yeah, I'm hoping that it'll be a very kind of not so much claustrophobic, but an all-encompassing vibe in the cinema. That's what I'm hoping.
That's it. But anyway, but you did a fantastic job. Like, that is so impressive.
But listen, thank you for your time, and thank you for taking
so much, Niall. It was lovely to catch up again.